My overbearing mother-in-law blocked my path, her voice edged with accusation. "If you leave now, everyone will know you're lying," she sneered. My patience snapped. "Move, Laura," I demanded. But before I knew it, she grabbed a heavy serving spoon and hit me on the head with anger. My world spiraled. Then he shoved me hard from behind, making me tumble down the stairs. As I tumbled, one desperate thought filled my mind. Asterisk, is my baby safe? Hello everyone, I'm Lisa. Lately, my life has been a whirlwind. Honestly, I never imagined I'd be sharing this, but life has a knack for hitting you with surprises when you're least prepared. I'm 31 years old, working as a marketing executive, and until recently, I thought I had everything under control. Just over a year ago, I married Mark, my college sweetheart. We were so happy, feeling like we were on top of the world. Not long after, we received some incredible news. I found out I was pregnant. This was our little secret, and we were beyond excited. One evening, unable to contain my excitement any longer, I turned to Mark and said, "Can you believe it? We're going to be parents." My joy was overflowing. Mark pulled me into a big hug, his eyes shining. "I know, Lisa. It's amazing," he said with a smile. "But remember, let's keep it quiet until after the first trimester." He was calm and thoughtful, reminding me to be cautious, and I agreed. But keeping this huge secret turned out to be a lot harder than I'd expected, especially around Mark's family. Speaking of Mark's family, that's a whole different story. There's Laura, my mother-in-law. She's generally nice, but she can be overbearing. Laura still treats Mark like he's a kid who constantly needs her guidance. Then there's Mark's dad, Edward, who's usually quiet and doesn't get involved in family matters. Mark also has two siblings. His sister, Rachel, often acts like I'm her competition. She gives me these looks, almost like I stole something from her. Mark's brother, John, barely talks to me, as if I'm not even there. Family gatherings are, to put it mildly, a bit challenging. Take last Wednesday's lunch, for example. Mark and I were getting ready, and Laura suddenly noticed a small wrinkle on his shirt. "Mark, honey, your shirt's wrinkled." "Lisa, don't you know how to use an iron?" she asked, her tone sharp enough to make me wince. I felt a wave of irritation, but managed to keep my cool. "I'll double-check next time, Laura," I replied with a forced smile, trying to stay polite. As if that wasn't enough, Rachel jumped in. "Oh, Lisa, don't worry about it. Not everyone's meant to be a homemaker," she added with a smirk. I could feel my blood pressure rising, but I held back, refusing to let them see how much their comments bothered me. Later that evening, I called my best friend, Olivia, to vent. "If Laura makes one more snide comment about my housekeeping, I'm going to lose it," I groaned. Olivia's laughter filled the phone. "Girl, you married Mark, not his mother. Just tell her to back off," she said, trying to lighten the mood. "I wish it were that simple," I sighed. "Mark hates conflict, and I don't want to make things worse, but sometimes it's so hard to deal with this." Despite everything, I knew I loved Mark and wanted to make things work. But right now, I was figuring out how to balance being a wife, a future mom, and just myself, all while handling family dynamics I never quite anticipated. I felt like I was drowning under all the expectations everyone had for me. My friend Olivia is always the voice of reason. She told me, "Lisa, you need to stand up for yourself, especially now that you're having a baby." I knew she was right, of course, but the thought of speaking up made me feel sick, though, to be honest, it could have also been the morning sickness. As the weeks went by, it became harder and harder to keep the pregnancy a secret. One night, Mark and I were lying in bed, and he looked at me with a mix of excitement and nerves. "Lisa, I think it's time. Let's tell them about the baby at the family dinner next week," he said, his eyes searching mine. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to keep our happy news just between us, safe from Laura's constant judgment and Rachel's jealousy, but I knew we couldn't hide it forever. "Okay," I said, trying to sound confident. "Let's do it." But even as I said it, I couldn't shake the feeling that this announcement would change everything. Little did I know how right I was, and just how wrong things would turn out. The day of the family dinner finally arrived, and I was a nervous wreck. I spent hours cooking, hoping to impress Laura, though I knew that was probably wishful thinking. Sure enough, as soon as we sat down, Laura had something to say. "Lisa dear, the roast is a bit dry. Did you forget to baste it?" she asked, her voice sugary but sharp. I forced a smile. "I'll keep that in mind for next time," I said, swallowing my frustration. Then, as if that wasn't enough, she added, "And that dress, is it new? It looks a bit tight, don't you think?" Her eyes drifted down to my waist, and I felt my face heat up. Just then, Mark cleared his throat. "Actually, Mom, we have some news," he said. My heart pounded as he glanced at me for support. "Lisa and I are having a baby." There was a brief silence, and then everyone reacted at once. Edward actually smiled, which was rare, and John mumbled a quick congratulations. Rachel, on the other hand, looked like she'd swallowed something sour. But Laura's reaction was the one that took my breath away. "Are you sure, Mark? How do you know she's not making it up?" Laura said, her tone icy. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Excuse me," I managed to say, my voice shaking. "It's just convenient timing, isn't it?" Laura continued. "Right as Mark's career is taking off." Mark looked genuinely confused. "What are you talking about, Mom?" Rachel jumped in eagerly. "Remember when Lisa was so adamant about birth control?" "Funny how that changed," she said with a smug look. I felt their accusations crush me, and I couldn't hold back anymore. "That was over a year ago," I protested. "We decided together that we were ready for a family." But the happy moment was gone. Mark looked uncertain, doubt creeping into his expression. Laura suddenly stood up, her chair scraping loudly. "If you're really pregnant, prove it." Her words hung in the air, cutting through what was supposed to be a joyful announcement. I never imagined that sharing this news would turn into a test, a situation where I had to prove my happiness and my truth. I was left standing there, feeling more alone than ever. "You want me to prove I'm pregnant?" I repeated, my voice trembling with shock and anger. "You want me to take a test right here?" Laura narrowed her eyes. "Don't be crude, Lisa. A proper blood test would be fine," she replied coldly. I turned to Mark, hoping he'd step in, defend me, and tell his mother to stop, but instead he looked torn, glancing back and forth between Laura and me. After a long pause, he said softly, "Maybe it's not such a bad idea, Lisa, just to settle everyone's doubts." My heart dropped. How could he even consider this? How could he take their side instead of mine? "This is crazy. I'm leaving," I said, feeling a mix of frustration and sadness. I turned to go, but before I could make it to the door, Laura stepped in front of me, blocking my way. "If you walk out that door, we'll all know you're lying," she said, her voice sharp and accusing. "Get out of my way, Laura," I said, my voice rising. But suddenly, everything changed. It all happened so quickly, yet in slow motion. Laura grabbed a serving spoon from the table and struck me hard on the head. Pain surged through me as she then shoved me backward, sending me tumbling down the stairs. My world spun before everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, I was lying in a hospital bed, feeling disoriented and in pain. Tears rolled down my face as I replayed what had just happened. Laura's cold expression, Rachel's smug face, Mark's hesitation, and John's failed attempt to stop his mother. All of it swirled in my mind, filling me with a sense of betrayal I'd never felt before. As the ambulance rushed me to the hospital, one question filled my mind. Was my baby okay? And even if everything was fine, could I ever trust my husband or his family again? When the ambulance reached the hospital, I was taken straight to the emergency room. Doctors and nurses moved quickly around me, speaking in medical terms I didn't understand. The only thing I cared about was whether my baby was safe. I felt terrified and helpless, clinging to the hope of good news. Hours later, I woke up to the steady beeping of hospital monitors. A doctor stood beside my bed, smiling gently. "Miss Carter, you're awake. I have good news. Your baby is safe. You're both going to be okay." A wave of relief washed over me, but it was quickly replaced by anger as I remembered why I was there. This was supposed to be a joyful time in our lives, a celebration of our growing family, but instead, I'd been forced to defend myself against accusations from the very people who were supposed to be my family. I glanced over and saw Mark standing by my bedside, his face pale and filled with regret. "Lisa, I'm so sorry," he whispered, but his words felt hollow. How could he apologize now, after allowing his family to doubt me, after standing by while I was hurt? I turned away, realizing that things would never be the same. In that moment, I knew I'd have to make some tough decisions about who I could really trust and what kind of life I wanted for myself and my child. This wasn't just about my baby's safety, it was about protecting our future. Mark tried to explain. "I don't know what happened, Lisa," he began, but I cut him off, anger bubbling up. "What happened?" "Your mother hit me on the head with a serving spoon and pushed me down the stairs. That's what happened." He flinched. "Mom says it was an accident. She was just trying to stop you from leaving." Before I could respond, my best friend, Olivia, rushed into the room. "Lisa, oh my God, are you okay?" She turned to Mark, her eyes blazing. "And you? How could you let this happen?" "It wasn't. I didn't," Mark stammered, but Olivia wasn't having it. "Save it," she snapped, silencing him. She turned back to me, her voice soft. "I'm here, Lisa, whatever you need." Mark looked at me, then stepped out of the room to get some air. As soon as he left, I filled Olivia in on everything that had happened. Her face grew darker with each word. "We're not letting them get away with this," she said firmly. Just then, we heard voices in the hallway. Laura and Rachel were talking. "We just need to convince Mark it was an accident," Laura was saying. "Lisa's always been clumsy, probably faking this whole pregnancy anyway." Olivia's eyes widened, and without a word, she pulled out her phone and started recording their conversation. As their voices faded down the hallway, I felt a new resolve inside me. Enough was enough. "Olivia, I need your help. We're going to fight back," I said, feeling stronger with each word. Over the next few hours, we made a plan. Olivia managed to get a nurse to give us copies of my medical records, which showed clear evidence of my pregnancy and injuries consistent with being hit and pushed. "We should get statements from the hospital staff, too," Olivia suggested. "They can confirm your condition when you arrived." I nodded, though I hesitated. "What about Mark? He's been texting me, full of doubts and clearly still believing his mother." "Forward them to me. It's all evidence, Lisa," Olivia said, her eyes determined as she gathered everything we needed. I took a deep breath and made a call I never thought I'd have to make. "Hello, is this the office of Carol Baker? I need to speak with her about a domestic abuse case." Meanwhile, Olivia returned looking triumphant. "Got it all, medical records, staff statements, and that lovely recording of Laura and Rachel plotting." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything settling around me. "Olivia, I've made a decision. I'm leaving Mark." Her eyes softened, filled with both understanding and sadness. "Are you sure?" "I have to, for my baby's sake and my own," I replied firmly. Just then, Mark walked back into the room, looking conflicted. "Lisa, can we talk?" "Mom wants to come and apologize," he said, looking at me with pleading eyes. "No, Mark, we can't," I said, cutting him off. "And she can't. I'm done." His face fell, clearly not expecting this. "What do you mean?" "I mean I'm leaving," I said, my voice steady. I watched the shock spread across his face, but I didn't feel any doubt. I had to protect myself and my baby, and that meant leaving behind anyone who didn't have my back. "I can't be part of this family anymore, Mark. It's not safe for me or our child," I said, my voice firm but filled with sadness. "Lisa, please, we can work this out," Mark pleaded, looking desperate. Olivia stepped in, her voice steady and strong. Mark, respect her decision. Mark looked at both of us, stunned, then slowly left the room, looking like he'd been hit by a wave. As the door closed behind him, I felt a mix of emotions, sadness for the life I had imagined, but also relief. I knew this wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. I turned to Olivia, taking a deep breath. What now? She gave me a determined smile. Now we get somewhere safe, then we make sure they face the consequences. Months went by and life changed. I was now 8 months pregnant, waddling around Olivia's apartment with a belly that was impossible to hide. Every day, my baby bump reminded me of why I was fighting so hard for a future free from the pain and distrust I had endured. "Ready for court today?" Olivia asked, handing me a glass of water. I took it, my hand a little shaky. "As ready as I'll ever be," I said with a nervous smile. When we arrived at the courtroom, it was packed. Across the room, I saw Mark and his family. Laura sat there, looking as smug as ever, but I knew that wouldn't last. My lawyer, Carol, was sharp and prepared. She began presenting our case piece by piece, my medical records, testimonies from hospital staff, and finally, the recorded audio of Laura and Rachel planning to cover up their actions. "Your Honor, we'd like to present audio evidence of the defendants discussing their attempts to hide their actions," Carol announced. As Laura and Rachel's voices played for the court, I saw the color drain from their faces. Mark looked like he'd been slapped, his expression filled with shock and horror. Then the judge turned to Laura. "Mrs. Carter, you struck your daughter-in-law on the head and pushed her down a flight of stairs, endangering her life and the life of her unborn child. How do you plead?" Laura stammered, her usual composure cracking. It was an accident. I never meant." "Save it for your lawyer, Mrs. Carter," the judge interrupted sternly. "You're facing charges of assault and endangering an unborn child." During a break, Mark approached me, looking exhausted and defeated. "Lisa, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. Can we please talk for a moment?" I felt a hint of pity, maybe even a small flicker of regret, but then I remembered those long, painful days in the hospital, how he had doubted me, how he had chosen his mother over me and our child. I shook my head. "No, Mark, your apology means nothing now. You chose your mother over us. There's no coming back from that." His face crumpled, but I held firm. I had a future to protect. Later, the judge's gavel came down with a loud bang. In the matter of Carter versus Carter, this court rules in favor of the plaintiff, Ms. Lisa Carter. She is granted a divorce, full custody of the unborn child, and a settlement of $700,000 for emotional damages and medical expenses. Hearing those words, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. This chapter was finally over. I had fought for myself, for my child, and for a new beginning. I didn't look back at Mark or his family as I left the courtroom. My focus was now on the future, one where I could finally feel safe and start anew. 4 years later, I was busy blowing up balloons for my daughter Emily's 2nd birthday. My little fighter, born against all odds, now happily toddled around, babbling and laughing. Olivia walked in, her arms full of presents, smiling wide. "Where's the birthday girl? Auntie Olivia's got goodies," she said with a big grin. I watched Emily squeal with joy, her eyes lighting up, and I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude for how far we'd come. So much had changed in my life. I was now running my own marketing business, using my experiences to help others who'd been through hard times tell their own stories. My goal was to give people a voice and turn pain into purpose. Laura was no longer in our lives. She was serving her sentence. Turns out pushing a pregnant woman down the stairs was something the justice system took very seriously. I didn't think about her much anymore. She was part of the past, a chapter I had left behind. More friends started arriving, filling my home with warmth and laughter. These were my people now, the family I'd chosen. Together, we laughed, ate, and celebrated Emily's special day. I felt surrounded by love, And I realized that this was what family was supposed to feel like: supportive, joyful, and safe. As the party wound down, I carried a sleepy Emily to her bed and tucked her in, whispering softly, "Happy birthday, my brave girl. The world is yours, and it's mine too." I kissed her on the forehead, feeling a peace I hadn't felt in a long time. This life, this new beginning, was one that I had fought hard for. It was a life that was safe and happy, and I was determined to protect it. Whatever challenges came next, I knew Emily and I could handle them together. After everything we'd been through, I had no doubt we were ready. Looking back on everything, I'm left with one lingering question. If you were in my position, would you have given Mark another chance? Was it too cold-hearted to turn down his apology, or was it the right step to keep my daughter and myself safe from any potential risks down the line? There's no simple answer here, and everyone's story is unique. But I'd really appreciate hearing what you would have done in my shoes. If you're also facing a difficult choice or know someone who is, sharing your thoughts could be a big help. Please drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights could mean a lot to someone going through a similar struggle. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to stay updated with more, and leave a comment with your thoughts. Your support means so much, and I love hearing from you. Thank you for watching.